In this video, I'm going to show you how I like to weave in my ends on my socks. So here I have a finished DK weight sock, but this is the method of weaving in my ends I do for all my socks, regardless of weight. So this is actually my Delightful Knit sock pattern, which can be found in my Ravelry store. It's a cuff down sock, so I have my cast on at the cuff, and then I finished off with a standard toe. And I've just kitchenered the toe, and so I have to weave in my end. Now, here's the thing about the standard toe, that when I weave in this end, I have the last stitch I kitchenered, so it kind of leaves this a little tab here that if I were to just, you weave in your ends on the wrong side, and so if I thread my yarn needle and poke my thread through on that side, I find I get this little bump here. You can kind of see it. I get this little bump, and that kind of drives me crazy because I feel like that'll snag on something, and so I like to weave my end in a way that will tack that down. So let me get my end back out. Alright, so here's what I do to weave in my end and kind of get rid of that little tabby thing. So I finish kitchenering, I thread my yarn needle, and what I do is I have my hand inside the sock to kind of help me and guide me. So what I do is I see these column of stitches. These are where my toe decreases is, was my left leaning decrease and my right leaning decrease. I go in between these column of stitches and I pick up one bar between those two stitches. So I pull my yarn through that, and then I take my yarn needle and I kind of position it through those little tabs that stick up. I put it under both loops, and then I go, here's the next bar between those two stitches from the row after the one I just picked up. So there's the one we just did a little whip stitch in, and then I pick up these two stitches, these two tabs, and then I go under it again. So I picked up that bar, I put my needle around these two tabby things that I want to stitch down, and then I just poke my needle in between the bar I picked up and the bar of the next row. So I'm just stabbing down into the work. And then I pull through. And I just give it a tug. And that eliminates that tab where I feel like it's going to snag, and it just gives it a nice finish, I think. So then I turn my sock inside out. Put my hand in here again to make it easier for me to see. And now I can just weave in this end like I would in any project. I can just go around these reverse stockinette bumps. Then I always like to go back a stitch or two, just for extra security's sake. And then I just take my snips and cut it. That's how I weave in the toe. And then for the cuff, because this is a cuff down sock, and because I don't usually do any sort of like when you cast on in the round, you get this little bit of a jog here, little stair step, little empty space here, just because you're working in a spiral. How I fix that is I just thread my yarn needle, and I go to this first column of knit stitches, and I kind of take this bar, the bar that's kind of not twisted because I did a long tail cast on. You see you have this empty space here. I just kind of, there's this bar of the stitch, and there's this one next to it. I kind of pick up this one, preferably without splitting it. There we go. And then I just pull that down, and that kind of completes that twist. I can go back over here where I started, and that fills in that gap really nicely. and then that was on the right side, so on the wrong side I can just weave it in as I normally would with ribbing. Just whip stitch around this column of knits. And then work my way back down. I just like to stretch it out, and then I can just cut it. Now my ends are all woven in as nicely as I can get them. And that's how I weave in my ends for my cuff down socks.